I want to go to our Vaughn Hilliard, who is standing by, who is covering the Trump campaign. Vaughn, what more are we learning about this ruling and how Trump and his team may be reacting?
I'm digesting this in real time with you as well. I know we're just beginning to look through this 57-page filing here. This was a 3-judge panel from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. This was a stay that was issued after Judge Chutkan ordered that Donald Trump did not have presidential immunity and that the federal charges of election interference would go forward against him. Then 3 weeks ago, his team, after appealing that ruling from Judge Chutkan, went before that 3-judge panel, the appeals court, and laid out their case as to why the charges against him should be dismissed. 3 weeks later, now just in the last literally 3 minutes here, we have that decision from the appeals court in which they affirm Judge Chutkan's decision and say that Donald Trump does not have presidential immunity. Now, we should note that the Trump team has already indicated that they intend to appeal this decision to the U.S. Supreme Court. You'll recall that Special Counsel Jack Smith had intended and requested that the Supreme Court be the initial ones to hear Donald Trump's appeal and bypass the appeals court. That did not happen. That has all but effectively slowed down this case. You said that Judge Chutkan acknowledged that the March 4th trial start date would be pushed back. We are looking at that anywhere from as late as April or May now, even beginning here. But when we're talking about what has actually been determined by the court here now, Anna, this is notable, not only just in this case, but also for future presidents who serve in the Oval Office. You'll recall that Donald Trump's attorney had made the case to the appeals court that a president can only be charged with crimes if he were to been impeached and convicted by the U.S. Congress, making the case that Donald Trump, that did not happen when the Senate voted to not convict him after the House voted to impeach him on those January 6 charges. Now, Donald Trump, over the last several days on social media, as well as from the campaign stage, has continued to make the case that a president should have full presidential immunity, so they do not fear that any actions that they take in office could ultimately lead to charges once they leave the Oval Office. Now, Donald Trump's attorneys were asked by one of the judges on that panel 3 weeks ago about a particular situation in which, let's say, a president of the United States were to order a SEAL team to assassinate a political rival. Would he be ultimately able to be charged after leaving the White House? And Donald Trump's attorney made the case that he should be protected unless the Congress was impeached and convicted him. Of course, now, as we are beginning to work through this here, this actual 57-page ruling and decision here from the appeals court, clearly these 3 judges decided that a president is not immune from being charged, and at least until we hear from the Supreme Court on this and whether they actually take up the appeal or not, at this point in time, Donald Trump and the federal election interference case against him will be moving forward.
Okay, so Vaughn, please stay with me as we